All right, well, just to be mindful of everyone's time, we will go ahead and get started. But good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today, and a special thank you to our employers for volunteering as panelists. We have a large and dynamic community of student employees here at ASU, many of whom are eager to learn how to best articulate their experiences gained through student employment, experiential learning, and work integrated learning opportunities that they're participating in while attending college. Whether it's crafting resumes, writing cover letters, or preparing for interviews, students are seeking guidance on how to translate their skills into career success. Today, we're excited to have a panel of distinguished employers with us who will be sharing their insights, advice, and expertise on how students can effectively present their experiences to potential employers, from resume building tips to interview best practices and advice on entering the workforce. We have a lot to cover. And our goal today is for each of you to leave with strategies and advice that will help you stand out in your job search and confidently communicate the value of your experiences. So with that, I will let our panelists kick us off. If you would like to each do an introduction, and then we'll jump into the questions that we have for you today.
I can go first, I guess. So my name is Tanner Devlin. I am a finance and accounting manager here at Republic Services. In case you know what Republic Services is, we are one of the largest environmental services companies here in the U.S. I went to University of Arizona, Bear Down, for my undergrad. And I actually went to ASU for my master's in finance degree.
Thank you, Tanner. And Lisa, I see you're unmuted, so I'm going to hop to you next.
Yeah, my name is Lisa Yample. I work with Enterprise Mobility, or Enterprise Rent-A-Car, we're commonly well known. I've been with Enterprise for almost 21 years. I graduated from ASU, so marks up to everybody out there. But I graduated from ASU. I started working with Enterprise exactly 1 month later. I've had 13 different promotions in that time, and now I'm our group talent manager. So I oversee all the hiring, recruiting, and training with the state of Arizona.
Thank you, Lisa. Lauren, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Lauren Sellers. I lead early careers recruitment for Fairlife. We're the protein and milk company that you guys probably see around campus. I'm not from Arizona, so very slim chance you guys will know where I went to school. It's called Grand Valley State University. It's in Michigan, but great to meet all of you and to be on here virtually to meet you guys today.
Thank you, Lauren.
Hi, I'm Jacinta Williams, and I work for the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Scottsdale. I'm an HR generalist, and I went to NAU and just graduated actually in the spring. But yeah, it's great to meet all of you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We'll start off with a more general question, but as hiring managers, what are some specific experiences or skills do you look for on a resume?
Guess I'll go. So I know that I'm probably a bit more technical because I'm on the accounting and finance side, but I'm kind of looking for skills that align well with the role in which we're hiring, right? And I think it's just important to kind of curtail your resume to that specific role. I can't tell you how many times people have submitted resumes that are more boilerplate and just are general things instead of actually taking the time to go through and curtail it to what you're applying for. So kind of putting in that extra effort actually does pay dividends there.
Yeah, I would follow that up with, just like he said, you want to make sure that you are putting skills that align with that job. So you should be able to look at the job post and see what the competencies are for that job, and then really tailor it that way. One thing I will say as well is make it one page, make it easy to read, so that it's really easy for a recruiter just to look at it. Some things we look for are resiliency, so you're not job hopping all the time, sales ability, customer service ability, competitiveness. So there's a lot of different things that we look for depending on the type of job that we're hiring for.
I can go next. So one of the things that I'm looking for when I'm looking at resumes, especially for individuals who are early in their career, is some sort of leadership capability. If you've been a manager in your part-time job, if you've led others in group projects, if you have worked well within teams, those are all things that I'm really looking forward for on different resumes because we're a very collaborative environment. I'm also looking for examples of times where maybe you've worked with more senior individuals. So maybe you've done research and you've worked with professors. Maybe you've done an opportunity where you've worked with an advising office or something like that. We want to be able to see that you've had experience working with individuals at multiple levels as well.
I would say for us, it depends on the role, but because we work with children, sometimes we do have a lot of college students during the summertime that kind of want positions with us, which is great. But simple things like putting volunteer experience, because sometimes like volunteering like at a church or at a summer camp for the summer, like previous experience, or even babysitting or something like that, that shows at least you know how to handle children in really great situations, or maybe kind of in a situation where it's a little bit like high stress. But putting those things on a resume, we do look at, because it's easier to understand, like, okay, this person only has, just say, like accounting or business as their experience. And sometimes that can be hard to try to see where they would fit in one of our clubs.
Thank you all for sharing. My next question, I'm interested to hear your perspective on what you would see as the biggest advantage of the students who are on this call today. You know, they are participating in on-campus student employment. The advantage of participating in on-campus student employment or a internship or research, or like you mentioned, Jacinta, volunteer experience, something work-based learning equivalent. What's the advantage of that versus if they were to work off campus in, let's say, like a restaurant or the movie theater? What would you see as the benefit to the experience that this group of students is gaining today?
So even though I don't have direct experience in that, I think just having the flexibility, right? I think someone working on campus and that employer on campus is going to be more understanding of your schedule than an employer off campus, right? So I think that's a benefit. And also, they may be able to align you with roles at your job on campus with what you're actually studying too. So that's also just another benefit.
I can add in here too. I worked on campus as a college student. I learned a lot of essential skills that I took off campus into internships and obviously full-time jobs postgraduate. But I think one of the biggest skills that I learned was working with a wide variety of people. A lot of times I think on-campus jobs you think are service-based positions, whether it's campus dining or you're working maybe in a service sector. You're learning to work with people, you're learning interpersonal skills. You might learn that off campus, but especially being at ASU, there are so many students that that's really not an opportunity that you're going to get anywhere else. And it's really a safe place to learn around other students too. So you're not dealing with the general public a lot of times. So hopefully that's a little bit of an easier experience at some points. But can definitely teach you a lot about interacting with different personalities, working with other people, having leaders who are adults, full-time job individuals as well. So gives you a lot of skills going into the workforce.
Yeah, we promote solely from within at our company. So a lot of times you're, a peer with someone and then you become their manager. So I think, working on campus, you're working there with your peers. So I do think that's a nice thing that you can learn at this level.
For me, I worked while going to school at NAU. I had a full-time job, but I was also working part-time as a peer mentor. So having that job was great because, for one, it kind of gave me transferable skills where I knew how to schedule, I knew how to plan, I knew all those like little things, which actually helped me get the job or work for the organization I'm in now. Because it was like my bosses would always kind of say, like, oh, how is this working for you? That this little task or this little project, how can you make that a transferable skill? Because it would help me try to put those skills to a resume. So when I applied for the job, the company I'm with now, that was like a big green light that they were like, oh, you work with like the college, like what do you do? Like it was a big like conversation point because it was like, you know how to multitask, you know how to be organized, all those things. Even if you're not working like as a server or somewhere else outside, but working for the campus, it's like you are doing customer service, you're connecting, you're being organized. All of those things are very informative information to have for employers because they're like, oh, they know how to go to school, but they also know how to like manage jobs still.
Absolutely. A lot of the skills do transcend a variety of different careers and industries that students might go into. And that's a good transition into my next question. There's a lot of students who don't see their current student jobs as relevant to their future careers. How do you recommend that students draw connections between seemingly unrelated jobs and the positions that they're applying for, or students who maybe have, minimal work experience as they're getting closer to graduation and they are applying for these post-grad jobs? How do they kind of make those connections and call out the experience that they've had during college?
Yeah, I think at our at Enterprise, we look at 6 different competencies. So communication, leadership, sales ability, customer service ability, resiliency, and work ethic. So all of those things would definitely transfer over. I mean, we have people that they didn't work in a job, but honestly, school can be a job as well, that you're collaborating, you're doing a lot of projects together. So you can still show that leadership. You can still show the different aspects of that. A lot of times we talk to athletes and they don't have time to work and be an athlete, but all of the things that you're doing as an athlete transfer right over to a school or to a job. So I think that basically everything that you're doing, you can make that into a case for the job. So I don't think you have to have a lot of experience. It's more the ability to do those things.
I think sometimes some people think that what they did and what their degree is, that sometimes they can just jump right into like this big executive position. But I think understanding that, yes, you have a degree, which gets you in the door, but having even just like the college job experience gets your foot in the door. So being able to do like that level entry job and knowing that the skills that you've had before while working on campus, it's probably going to be similar, but since you excel at it so well, it gets you looked at faster than someone who's probably very green in a position like that. But for you, since you have like experience that are transferable skills, you can easily move up a lot faster than somebody who doesn't.
Yeah, and I'm going to say, development of those soft skills is pretty paramount, right? I mean, when you're applying for your first job, companies aren't expecting you to have all this experience. And what you can do is kind of develop those communication skills and those multitasking skills that are going to translate into that. Because again, during your interview, that's when you're really going to sell yourself, and that's when communication comes into account. And from working on campus, you're developing that through interactions with third parties, interactions with your coworkers, whatever it may be. So just kind of really harping on those soft skills that will sell you during the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. And I second that, work on those soft skills. But also I think identifying what type of position you're looking to go into post grad and kind of starting to see what skills those positions are looking for too. How can you identify those skills from your on-campus experience? So if you're a chemistry major and you're working in a lab environment, you're doing these things already in school. So how can you show an employer that you're doing that? Vice versa with other areas as well. But I think really identifying what you need to be successful in this entry level position and seeing how you can take the skills from your on-campus job, from your club experience, from volunteer work, and how can you really spell that out for a recruiter on your resume or in a cover letter even, and share that experience with them.
Thank you. And that's another great transition into my next question. There's a lot of research that students who are entering the workforce, they have the skills and the experience, but that it could potentially be a articulation issue in terms of them, making the connection between the skills and experience that they've gained, and connecting those to the careers that they're interested in post-grad, but also how they talk about those. And, it can be nerve-wracking to interview. I know I've been in countless interviews before where I'm asked a question to recall on a specific experience or situation, and I just draw a blank. So I'm curious to hear if you all have any advice or effective strategies that students can use to prepare for job interviews, especially when discussing their work and their work-based learning experience that they've gained during college.
I would say first off, we're rooting for you. We want you to do well. So we know that you're going to be a little bit nervous, and we try to, do a little bit of small talk and things to open you up and make sure that you feel comfortable with us. So it's not that we're trying to intimidate you or make it scary. We are on your side, but I think the more you prepare ahead of time, so reading about the job, learning about the job, as well as reaching out to people that are in that field. I mean, LinkedIn is a great place to reach out to people and ask them what they did in college and look at their profiles and see if there's something that you did as well and how you can relate that. And then practice, practice, practice. Practice with your friends, practice with your whoever you want it to be. Just being able to articulate it. Sometimes we write things down on a piece of paper and they sound fantastic. And then when we go to articulate it, it doesn't come out the same. So just having that practice is great. And if you don't understand a question that someone's asking you or you are lost on it, ask them to repeat it or ask them if you can come back to it. We're not expecting you to be perfect.
I will say, like for me personally, like I had applied for jobs because I was working in healthcare for a long time and I wanted to leave healthcare and go into more operations of business. And it was really hard. And I kept going on all these interviews and I was like wondering, like, am I just not personable? Am I too like answering the questions exactly how they're wanting? And I had talked to my bosses with my NAU job, and one of them told me, they're like, just smile, take deep breaths, and just be yourself. Like, because when you are yourself to answer the questions, you start to shine and you start to actually answer the questions in a more natural way than more of a robotic way. Because it's not really, the employer's not really looking for the right answer. They're really just trying to see who you are as a person. and trying to see like how you would deal with a stressful situation or a good situation. They'll see that with your personality.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you know, when it really comes down to it, interviews are just a conversation between two people. Like, take a step back, like don't take it super seriously, and that's when you start, you know, being more relaxed, less rigid answers, right? And you're just kind of being yourself. You're just having a conversation with another person, and that's it. You want to be yourself, so that way your personality kind of shines through, and you know, you're not as rigid as, you know, you make it out to be. So.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to articulation, you want to have an understanding of some examples to provide during an interview. I always recommend putting together 2 or 3 examples at least for an interview where you might be asked questions on how you'd handle a situation. Like someone said earlier, practice is very important as well. Practice with your friends, practice with your parents, practice with the career center, practice with a colleague, practice with whomever you think can help you, and do as many interviews as you can. When I was in college, even if I wasn't necessarily looking for a job, I would apply for a job and see if I could get an interview just to practice. So, you know, some hiring managers might not love that, but you know, it at least gets you some good experience.
That's all great advice. And yes, Lauren, to your point, what's the worst that can happen? Maybe you know, you just don't move on to the next round. It's okay. At least you got some practice to make you better for the next interview. And Jacinta, I love that you kind of called out, this is something we really try and emphasize within student employment, that importance of storytelling. So, you know, how you talk about your experiences and your skills, and, you know, situational storytelling, you know, really kind of putting in your personality and your own anecdotes to how you're talking about how your skills relate to questions that you're being asked.
Yeah, and make sure that you're fully answering the question too. Like if you get a long question or a 2-part question, it's okay to write down those 2 parts too, so you don't lose track of it. You can always ask them to repeat the question again. But make sure you're fully answering that question, because that is attention to detail that you might be missing then. And that might be a red flag to a recruiter or an employer as well.
Staying kind of on the topic of interviewing, and also kind of thinking about resumes or cover letters, what are some common mistakes that you're seeing new graduates make when it comes to writing their resumes or cover letters, and possibly in interviews, that you want to kind of offer some insight to maybe steer away from for this group today?
Yeah, we kind of talked about it a little bit before, but you know, tailoring that towards your job. If you put on there that you want to be a work from home job, but you're interviewing for somewhere that is not work from home, that might turn them off at that point. So you want to make sure that you're tailoring it to that job, um, and making sure there's like the spelling is correct on there and it's easy to read and the fonts are the same. I mean, just silly stuff that it's so much easier for a recruiter when they can just look at it and they can see everything right away.
I think sometimes like some of the resumes that I see that there's just so much. Like some people put like this long paragraph of stuff and then the formatting is kind of just convoluted. It's like this is something that's professional. Like have somebody look at it, have the career fair center look over it to make sure that everything's kind of in line, because it means like, you know, that this resume is basically who you are, because the employer does not get to see who you are or know anything about you. Like this is that first representation of who you are. So kind of put things that are kind of straight to the point. Don't have like all these run-on sentences of things like with work experiences. Like just put like just very straight to the point details of what you did at this job and things like that. Your resume should not be like 2 and 3 pages basically, and a cover letter should kind of get straight to the point and give a little story about the resume.
I was going to say with resumes, I think listing like action items and things that you've accomplished is pretty big, right? And one thing that I think that the current generations are doing is like letting their resumes get written by like ChatGPT. I would 100% avoid that. There's a lot of places that actually like filter through through a system and filter out those AI generated resumes. I know a lot of people are guilty of it, but just steer clear of that. So that's my advice.
I will just do a plug based off of what Tanner said. We do have some pre-recorded workshops on using ChatGPT responsibly and avoiding mistakes like what Tanner mentioned. So if any of our students on today's call are interested in that, we can definitely share those resources with you.
Yeah, make sure you're watching for spelling errors. I'm reviewing tons of resumes right now, hiring for interns and full-time positions, seeing lots of errors. Also in cover letters, make sure you're addressing them to the right company. I'm seeing wrong companies in them. If you're not going to customize it for us, for a cover letter, it's better to just not submit it, because I've had a few candidates that have submitted with wrong companies and it's an immediate no, because you didn't pay enough attention or submit the right document to this position. You're also going to want to make sure that if you're writing that cover letter, that you're customizing it for that position. Bring in some of your specific skills to that cover letter. Bring in some of your specific experiences to that cover letter, based though on the job description. Don't just make those up. So definitely you want to look at that job description as you're putting together your resources for it.
Great advice. Thank you. My next question was actually sparked by something that Lisa mentioned, and I apologize, panelists. I don't think this is one I prepared for, but I think you will still have some insights. I think, students entering the workforce, they are wanting to make sure that the job also aligns with, work-life balance or goals that they have. And I'm curious, when would you recommend is the right time in the interviewing process for an interviewee or an applicant to ask about things like salary or remote work, flexible work schedules, vacation, things like that, that wouldn't necessarily, put you off as a hiring manager or as an interviewer?
Yeah, you can look up a lot of that ahead of time. You can look on different websites. You can look at the company's website and see what they have, what their values are. I always tell people you're interviewing us as much as we're interviewing you. So you want to make sure those values line up with each other. You can go on different websites and see what people that work there, have interviewed there, say about the job. So I think you can do a lot of that ahead of time. And I always tell people, I know it's weird like asking for pay, but if the company's not willing to tell you how much they pay, that's kind of weird to me. So ask the questions and they'll answer you. I mean, if they don't want to answer you, that's kind of a red flag on that company, if you ask me.
I love that call out too, Lisa, that, they're interviewing you as well. I think that was something when I was younger and first exploring, full-time positions after I graduated. I was kind of so concerned about getting a job and not necessarily always thinking about, is this the right culture? Is this the right team that I want to be on? Does it align with, the things that are important to me, like work-life balance or things like that? And that's a good call out to ask those things so that you can make sure it's going to be the right fit for you as well.
I think asking those questions in the first interview is acceptable, because they are asking, do you have questions? And that is like a space to be like, hey, because at the end of the day, it's like your job is going to be the place that you spend most of your time at. So is this job worth your time and energy? Are they making it so you go there and there's a benefit to you? Are the benefits that they provide, are they going to be substantial for you? And if you have a family, are those going to be substantial for you? And it could be a situation of having that parallel of two jobs. Well, this one provides this amount of money with this benefits. This one doesn't provide that much money, but it has really great benefits. So having those conversations in the beginning can really give you a choice to see which company or job that really will fit for you the best.
Yeah, and kind of what Lisa was saying, doing the research ahead of time. There's a good website called Glassdoor that you can look up, that specific position. If it's a big company, there's definitely going to be reviews for that specific role and also interview questions. And most of the time, it does have salary too. So, even before you start interviewing, I would go there. And then, from my personal experience, just because, it depends on the point of time when you're in your career. But, if you're working with like a third party recruiter or something, I think you can be a little bit more direct and upfront before you even start the interview process. But, as everyone else has mentioned, just asking, during that first interview about those questions too. So.
Yeah, I would say don't leave your first interview with a recruiter or the hiring manager, whomever it is, without talking about compensation. And then that's also a good time to ask about culture. You can get a live answer from an actual person, what that culture's like. Like Tanner said, look on Glassdoor, look on Indeed. They all have reviews on there. Do your research though, make sure it's a company that you want to work for as much as you want the job. You can obviously leave a job whenever you want, but if you don't want to have that reputation of job hopping, you might want to consider, sticking around for at least a year or so in that first position. So definitely make sure it's someplace that you can at least feel tolerable about, if not enjoy your time working there.
Yeah, and I think, you don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste their time. Going back to something you said earlier, Lauren, I mean, you can use that as an opportunity. If that first interview, you find out at the end that it's not going to align with your goals and your what's important to you, then you can use that as practice, right? So there's benefits to still interviewing, but getting the information you need to move forward. I'm curious if all of our employers are in a little bit of different industries today. So wondering if there's any trends that you're seeing in the current job market that students should be aware of as they're getting ready to start applying for jobs or getting closer to graduation, what they should be thinking about.
It's a tough market out there. Regardless of if you have no experience, if you have lots of experience, and anywhere in between. So I think being resilient is going to be really helpful for you when it comes to a job, the current job market. But just be proactive. Don't trust that LinkedIn Easy Apply is going to get your resume in the hands of the employer. Make sure you're actually going through like the formal application process, and follow up as much as you can. If there's an email, you want to stay on top of it, email their recruiting team, whomever you can get a hold of, to kind of check on the status of your application. But you also have to be ready to not get an answer back, because a lot of times teams won't have the time to get back to you 100% of the time.
I would say start early. Everybody's graduating at the same time. So, a lot of companies right now, we're already interviewing for May grads. So getting in before the masses really try to get in is a good idea. But yeah.
And I was going to say, don't be picky with where you apply, right? I think that ASU does a really good job with career fairs. Like I've been to a couple when I was at WP Carey during my master's program and just talking with a variety of different companies that I didn't even know existed. So just being open and willing to try and speak to new people. So I think that's absolutely huge, just because you want to have the greatest number of applications, but also be selective and make sure that you have the best shot of, getting an interview or getting your foot in the door.
Yeah, like someone said, I wouldn't try to be too picky because a lot of people are being extremely picky since COVID. People, because employers also are not necessarily paying the same amount like as before, and some people don't realize that, and they anticipate that because they have a degree that they're going to make like this high amount of money, but it doesn't really work completely that way as much anymore. But sometimes entry level positions will get you to where you want to be. But I will say being patient is definitely something that you will definitely have to learn, because there's a lot of people looking, even more than just college students.
Thank you. Well, before we open it up to questions from the audience, just want to see if there's anything that I haven't asked or any pieces of advice that you want to share, again, before we let some of our students see if they have any questions for you. Okay, well then I will open it up to our audience. You're welcome to throw questions in the chat or come off of mute, but any questions that you all have for our employers who are here today. It's a good question. So in the chat from Dawn, should students make their resume more creative with the format? I think we're seeing that a little bit more with color and design. What are your thoughts on creativity in their resume?
I don't think it's necessary. Like I see resumes all the time just because I work in HR. But I think people get a little bit too crazy with like having like pinks and like their favorite color and then like fonts and picture. And a lot of employers right now, they're really old school. They are with the basic, like what Word has as a basic font format for resume. And sometimes that is perfect for them because it gets straight to the point instead of having to look through all of the fanciness.
I think it can also depend on the type of role that you're applying for. So, like, if you're a graphic designer, I'm expecting you have a creative resume because you're showing me through your resume who you are. If you're an engineer, I'm going to say probably not, because that's not going to go as far with your hiring manager. But also be considerate that if you're uploading to an applicant tracking system, the creativity that you might take on your resume might kind of get jumbled up, or the system might not read through it properly. It could kind of adjust the format where you don't want it to. So if you're worried about that, I would say skip the creativity and just upload, basic format, and save the creative copy until you get through to the interview process.
That's great advice. We did have another question in the chat. So the question is, should they list education first and then experience in different jobs, or keep education last? I guess overall, is there a particular order that you are sort of expecting in terms of education, skills, work experience when you're looking at a resume?
I was gonna say for me, I think when you're right out of college, I think maybe education goes first, but as you progress through your career, it's all about the experience that you have and that on your resume. But I mean, I'm indifferent.
I agree. As long as it's easy to find, I don't care if it's first or last, just on there. And don't put your picture on there. That's a big thing that companies don't like, because we don't want to be accused of hiring a certain type of person either. Diversity is a great thing for us to have, and we don't want to see that. And don't put your birth date on there either. Those are two big ones that I know we look at, and we always say, don't do that.
Great questions. Any other questions? Again, feel free to come off of mute or throw them in the chat.
Uh, hey, I would like to ask one question. So, first of all, thanks for having this session, and it was really helpful. I'm Vanshaj Gupta, a student worker working as a data analyst with Learning Enterprise at ASU. So, I'm pursuing my master's in computer science, and I will be graduating in next summer, like May 2025. So while exploring for new grad opportunities, I am heavily inclined towards growing my network and using LinkedIn for reaching out to professionals of same domain and for of different organizations. So my most important question would be, while I am approaching a recruiter or a lead person through cold email, what kind of cold email a manager would expect me to share? And if I have a particular position available in their organization, um, how I can better present myself to prove my competency or to have an opportunity to present myself. Yeah, thanks.
So I just want to clarify. So you're asking that when you're meeting, how can you find a time to present yourself to a hiring team? How can you put best foot forward? Is that kind of what I'm getting?
No, when I am approaching to professionals on LinkedIn, I'm sending them a cold messages, cold emails that this is the position
Got it.
available at your organization, and I might be interested to be part of your team. So, what kind of emails as a recruiting managers you expect? Whether it should be more focused towards my profile and how it overlaps the job description, or whether it should be just sharing my info and my willingness to be part of the team. And this was my question.
Yeah, I would say, especially when you're reaching out to someone through like a cold call or cold message, I would have it be more focused on yourself and some of the experience you bring to the table. At least that's what I look at when I'm looking at those, because I'm usually moving through them pretty quickly. I don't have a ton of time to spend on those LinkedIn messages. So when I'm trying to find the right people from those. And if you get a message back, it's typically because you've caught my attention in some way. So whether it's identifying the role that you're looking at and relating your skills to it, or if it's giving you an opportunity to just ask a question, maybe you've caught my interest that way and I can quickly answer your question too.
Right.
And you're doing this in addition to submitting your application for the positions, right? So this is just like proactive outreach. You've applied for the job and you're also reaching out to the hiring manager or someone in a similar position to show further interest, right?
Yeah, based on my discussion with some of the industry professionals who are working on same position, I would love what I do is I apply on organizations portal and then try to reach out to like-minded professionals or managers for that position. But yeah, thanks for the answer. I was really hoping for this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Great question. Any other questions from the audience today? All right. Well, I know we're all getting to the end of our work days. Sun's starting to set a little earlier, so we will wrap 15 minutes ahead of schedule, but I just want to thank our panelists once again. Really appreciate your time and all of the insights and advice that you were able to share today. This was really valuable. Like I said, we've recorded this, so we'll be able to share this out with even a larger group of student employees across ASU. But again, thank you for joining us. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.